Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Just I want to say a quick thank you to the people that subscribe and comment. It means a lot. If you do leave a comment, I'll definitely get back to you. That's what I love replying to the comments. I think that's good. It's good that people are engaging. So yeah, I just want to have a quick chat today about, I think the video theme is going to be about helping people. So I've got a fairly unique take on that. So probably best if we go back to the beginning, start at the beginning. So back in 2003 was when my older brother and I moved over to France. I was 21 back there, and when we first came over to France, we decided that we wanted some decent weather. We're fed up with England. So one of the best places in France to live is in Provence, in the south. Not far from Marseille is where we ended up, right in the heart of Provence. Beautiful part of the world. The countryside is absolutely stunning. It's amazing. But the people can be a bit of a different story. Obviously, it's a fairly well-off part of France, fairly expensive place to live. So as you can imagine, the people that weren't technically proper French, there was a massive African community down there and Muslim community. They were probably the nicest people that we met down there. The white French people were hard work, not very tolerant, very racist. Yeah, I think my best friend that I had down there was one of the first people that came and introduced himself to me and my brother, because me and my brother were starting up a small business down there in the middle of town where we lived. It's just a small town. And like within about 3 or 4 days, this guy turned up, introduced himself. I won't say his real name. We'll just call him Steve. Anyway, Steve turned up and he owned a restaurant about 50 yards down the street. And yeah, so got on really well with him. He was probably one of the most genuine people I've ever met. A lot of people, like some of the shopkeepers that were our neighbours, when they saw that we were hanging around with him a bit, they were like, "Oh, you don't want to hang around with him, he's bad news." And I was like, "Really, why?" And no one would explain or anything, so I thought it's probably just jealousy. Anyway, after spending a fair bit of time with Steve, whenever we got any time off or anything, we'd go around his house and play ping pong, darts, pétanque, that sort of stuff. And he was an absolute legend at any of these types of games. An absolute wizard. I never met anyone that was as good at darts and all that sort of stuff. Parlour games, if you will. So I think either me or my brother asked him, how come he's so good at all this? And he said, "Well, I got a lot of experience when I was in prison." And I was like, okay. So I asked him what he was in prison for. It turned out he had a bit of in his youth, because he was about 45 at this point. But when he was younger, he said, "Yeah, I was a bit of a bad boy. I was in with the wrong crowd." And he got into a bit of bank robbery, armed robbery. And his specialty was walking into banks dressed as a policeman with a pair of Colt 45s. So it turns out he'd actually done 2 stretches in a French prison for that, totaling about 15 years. So yeah, in 15 years you get pretty good at billiards and darts and pétanque and chess. So yeah, that was that. But yeah, so yeah, he definitely helped us out when we first moved to France. I'm still in touch with him now. He's a great guy. He lives in Corsica now. He had to move to Corsica to go and live with his son because he'd been in prison again after I sort of knew him. I think trafficking false money or something, fake banknotes. So yeah, he doesn't live in Provence anymore. So anyway, when we were down in, I'm digressing, but when we were down in Provence, my brother and I, we did make friends with a guy that was managing a bar not far from us. We used to pop in there for a quick drink after work when we'd shut our business. And yeah, back then, he was a nice guy, you know, do anything for you, that sort of thing. He had a bit of a drinking problem, but most French people do. Not trying to say that in a negative way, but it is a bit true. So yeah, I mean, my brother and I, we were there for 4 years, and the business that we were doing didn't really work out, so we decided to sell up and moved up to Brittany to be closer to our parents, who'd been already living there for a while. They were already retired. So yeah, so I didn't see much of the guy that was running the bar, that was our mate, until a few years ago, or a couple of years ago. It was his girlfriend. Well, he'd moved to Bordeaux after living where we lived. He'd spent the last 10 years in Bordeaux, and he'd got a girlfriend, had a kid. He's got a daughter the same age as my son. She's got a 9-year-old daughter. And a couple of years ago at Christmas, I got a phone call from his girlfriend saying that they'd split up. I think it was when she was on some sort of training course that she'd been on for a month. So it had just been him in the flat by himself. And during that time, when she wasn't living with him, I think they were going through a bad patch anyway. But God, I'm knackered. I just walked up the top here. Brilliant view. Absolutely love it. Fantastic. I love coming up here. The view's so good, especially on a day like today. So yeah. Anyway, back to it. This phone call that I got. Turns out that I think he got fired from his job. He's working in some sort of postal service type deal, like in a warehouse sorting out packages or some shit like that. So yeah, I think he got fired from that, and he'd got in with the wrong crowd. He got in with some homeless people that he'd met at the train station or something like that. So anyway, yeah, him and some homeless people have been squatting in his girlfriend's flat for like just over a month or something. Completely trashed the place. Excrement up the walls, all that sort of business, blood on the sofa, just absolutely disgusting. So yeah, when she came back, she ended up throwing him out. She couldn't deal with that. Fair enough, I'd do the same. So yeah, she sort of phoned me up in distress, saying that what had happened and that he was living on the streets, and if there's any way that I could help him. So I was like, well, you know, I've sort of haven't really been in touch with him that much since I left that part of the world. But because back then I was a fairly helpful sort of person, I did think of myself as being a bit of a humanist, a bit of a humanitarian. So yeah, I said, yeah, send him up here, and I can probably get him a job where I'm working. Part of my house is like a sort of self-contained granny annex, if you will. It's pretty big. It's like 100 square meters or whatever. But yeah, I said, yeah, I've got somewhere for him to stay, and I can get him a job. So we did that. So a few months later, she sent him up on a bus, and I went and picked him up from the nearest big town that's got a bus station where I live. And that was like during the sort of the summer months. And because he'd been living on the streets, he didn't have any paperwork or anything, so he had to spend like 3 months just at my house and no money coming in. So I was feeding him, lodging him for free until he could get his paperwork sorted so that he could get signed up with a job agency. That way I could get him into my job to do what I do with me, sort of thing. So yeah, I did that. Obviously that's not cheap when life's a struggle anyway, and you're trying to get someone else off the streets that's got a massive drug problem. I mean, he was smoking crack and doing heroin down in Bordeaux or whatever, and yeah, when you're going through the process of getting someone off that, it's hard work to say the least. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. So he got his paperwork through, and I managed to get him working with me. And because he didn't have a driving license, he had to work on the same team as me on the same day shift, so that I could drive him to work every day. So in France, when you get a job, you've got to work a month in hand until you start seeing any of your money. So I think it was probably about 4 or 5 months that I was paying his way 100%. So yeah, that took a bit of a strain on my finances. And even then, after that, when he did start getting paid his salary, I mean, he was earning a little bit more than me, because when you work for a job agency, you get paid more than if you're actually on a contract, because you're getting paid all your holiday sort of thing. You know, you're not allowed to take any holiday time, so they pay it you instead of having 5 weeks of holiday, paid holiday a year. So he was earning a bit more than me, but he was struggling to pay his rent. You know, I wasn't charging him a huge amount. You know, what he was paying me wasn't really covering the cost of him being there, sort of thing, because my electric bill more than doubled. Because he was just, I don't know, he wasn't really making much of an effort. I think any spare time he had, he was just down the bar, just getting pissed, drinking pints. A pint of beer here is about €9, so your wage soon goes. And if you're doing scratch cards at the same time and smoking Camel cigarettes, you know, your wage has soon gone down the toilet. So he was struggling to pay any rent, and pretty much every month he was asking me for money at the end of the month, saying, "Oh, can you lend me 200 quid?" I was just like, "Mate, you know, you're taking the piss a bit." So yeah, that was all a bit stressful, and that went on for about, I don't know, a year maybe. And I think it was last summer, I went into his part of the house. The front is like patio doors, and then you go into like the big open plan sort of room with a kitchen and living room or whatever. Opened the patio doors and walked in there, and my foot was in like about 4 inches of water, and he was just sat on a bar stool in the kitchen, completely oblivious to it. And I was like, how come the whole house is flooded? And he just gave me a sort of the usual blank expression. He was obviously probably still on something, probably doing drugs or whatever. And he was just like, "Oh, I don't understand. I was like, "How can you not understand? You know, you flooded the house. It stinks. The place is a mess." So anyway, I had a look under the sink, and I found out that the sink was like leaking or whatever. And so I took the plumbing apart, and all the plastic like washers and seals inside the tubing, it was either like melted or just missing. And I said to him, "What the hell's happened here?" And he said, "Oh, the sink was blocked, so I poured a load of chemical drain blocker down it." And I was like, "How much?" And he goes, "I poured 4 bottles down it." I was like, "All right, so you poured 4 litres of highly corrosive drain blocker down into plastic piping." Bloody hell. No wonder the seals have melted. So anyway, I got some new seals and redid the plumbing and sorted that out. And sort of thought nothing of it, and, you know, didn't have too much of a go at him about it, but I just said, you know, do you not think that I should be informed if the house is flooded? You know, serious damage has been done to the whole thing. So anyway, you know, nothing really seemed to sort of sink in. And then, I don't know, maybe a couple of months later, his behaviour just got worse and worse and worse. He was just like being really horrible to me, which I wasn't really prepared to put up with, considering everything that I'd done for him. You know, I got him off the streets. I thought I'd got him off hard drugs, but I'm not 100% sure. Got him a job, fairly well-paid job, for someone that's got pretty much no CV or anything. So yeah, I was pretty pissed off with his attitude, and his alcoholism was just going worse and worse and worse. And I've got 3 kids at home, and I don't want them to see any of that kind of crap. So yeah, we had a bit of a falling out, and I said, look, you know, this isn't working out. I was like, I'll give you a month, and you've got to find somewhere else to live. I can't be doing it anymore. You know, it's just too much disrespect, and you're not making an effort. So he seemed completely shocked at my attitude. He couldn't understand why. Same old. Oh, I don't understand. So yeah. So anyway, he left, and when he chose a time to leave so that I wasn't there. I was at school picking up my son, and that's when he sort of left the property and left the keys in the letterbox. So when I got back, I sort of walked into that part of the house, and I was just absolutely horrified. I mean, he was there by himself, just one person living in there, and it looked like an army of 20 junkies had been living in there. You've never seen anything quite so disgusting. I mean, it was filthy, it was hanging. Just the smell, it smelled like someone had died in there. So yeah, I turned on a tap in the kitchen sink, and it just started filling with water. I was like, oh, what's going on here? It wasn't leaking or anything, because I'd fixed that. But obviously the mains drainage was blocked completely. He'd obviously just been pouring grease down the sink with a cold tap running, so it's just going to solidify. And what proved the point was I went into the bathroom, and that was absolutely a travesty. I mean, the bath is normally white, but this bath was yellow. So he'd obviously had to revert to doing washing up in the bath. I was just absolutely mind-boggling how people can live. I was just flabbergasted. The bedroom was another story. That was absolutely filthy. There was red wine stains up the walls, under the bed, broken wine bottles under the bed. You've never seen anything like it. I'm not joking. You wouldn't wish it on anybody. Even if they are paying you a small rent, it's not worth the hassle. So yeah, I had to get the pros out to unblock the mains drainage. That cost me 200 quid. I mean, even in the kitchen, I got a text message from him saying that he cleaned up before he left. It's absolute rubbish. It's just disgusting. The kitchen was absolutely foul. There was like dirty crockery in the cupboards, and that had been there for months, I think. Just it was a horror show, absolute horror show. I mean, even the oven. I had a look at the oven, and I thought, oh, why isn't the oven on? There's normally, you can see the time on the oven. There was just nothing on the display. So I was like, what's going on there? So I sort of had a look at the fuse. There's nothing wrong with the fuse. So I pulled the oven out of the recess in the unit or whatever, and he'd cut the mains wiring that goes to the oven. He'd cut like the red and the blue wire. It's not the wire on the plug or anything. It's the actual mains wiring of the house. And he cut that with a pair of scissors, which I've never seen anything like that before. I thought that was just sheer madness, especially when you're probably standing in 2 inches of water because you flooded the house. Could have killed himself. Could have burnt the house down. So yeah, that was that. It took me about a month, like working tirelessly every day, trying to put everything right. Yeah, so that was my experience of helping someone that I knew. It wasn't a total stranger. It was someone that I thought I knew fairly well. Obviously didn't. So that was my experience of helping someone out. And after that, obviously you can imagine I was just mixed emotions. I was livid. I was angry with myself, angry with him. Completely lost all faith in humanity. You know, you help someone out that much and they just throw it all in your face and no respect. So yeah, I sort of swore never to help anybody that wasn't part of my immediate family ever again. But with hindsight, I think that's wrong. Obviously, I will try and help people, but I think if you do that sort of thing, you need to ask yourself a hell of a lot of questions before you do, which is what I didn't do. That was a mistake I made. I should have evaluated the situation a bit more and thought about, well, there's questions that you need to ask yourself in that situation is, you know, can I economically afford to help someone? Am I in a position to help somebody? Because it doesn't come for free. It's not It's not easy. It costs money. So have you got that kind of money to help somebody to start with? Emotionally, especially if you're dealing with a drug addict, emotionally you will get taxed to the nth degree, and that's hard work. Puts a strain on your relationship with your girlfriend and your family and all that sort of stuff, everything else. So yeah, hard work. Would I do it again? Probably not, to be honest with you. So yeah, before you do help somebody in that sort of situation, give it a lot of thought. Give it a lot of thought. Obviously my situation is fairly unique. I think I obviously took a bit more than I could chew, thinking I could turn someone's life around that much. I think my experience is probably the most extreme type of trying to help someone that you could possibly do. So yeah, you learn from your mistakes. Definitely. So yeah, feel free to leave a comment. Let me know if you've experienced a similar sort of thing where you've tried to help someone and it hasn't worked, or maybe you've done that sort of thing and it's turned out brilliantly. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. So yeah, obviously homelessness, something fairly close to my heart. So yeah, it'd be great if we could change everybody's lives, but they've got to want to help themselves to start with, and they've got to want to admit that they've got problems. Because I obviously took on a complete pathological liar. So yeah, if people could stop lying to themselves, then they can probably get the help they need. I think that's the first step. So yeah, I'll let you crack on with your day. I'm gonna go home and have some lunch, and leave a comment, leave a like, keep subscribing to all these small channels out there talking about their experiences. Trying to build a community. It's all positive, it's all good. Okay, so I'll leave you with that, and enjoy the rest of the day, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye bye.